a little easier.
Okay.
Hi, everybody. Um,
Hello.
Hello. Hey. Um,
Hello, good evening.
Hello, good evening. I might say good morning. Everyone, feel free to put your cameras on if you'd like. Happy to see folks or keep them off. Um, If folks wouldn't mind muting for now, and then we will quickly open this up to questions from everyone. Um, just so everyone knows, there are captions available in this meeting, and it's also being recorded, and we're going to post it on YouTube afterwards. Um, cool. So, I'm Maddie. I work at CultureHub in New York, and this is our Q&A session about the residency program. The residency program is has been around for I think around 15 years for Culture Hub. When we started in New York, it was one of the first programs that we started, was trying to give time and space to artists who are developing projects that were experimenting with emerging technology in some way. This program has grown, so we have a fairly competitive open call now that happens every year. And we accept in the world of 8 to 10 residents at this point each year through this open call. It's a great way for us to get to know artists and get to know the projects that they're working on. We meet a lot of people through this open call, way beyond the people who we actually select for this residency. So, even in this moment, it's nice to meet some of you and see faces, and we'll get to talk in a little bit. Um, this year we are accepting applications in 2 tracks. So that's maybe the most relevant change. The basics of the residency are that we offer at least 1 week in our studios in New York or Los Angeles for artists to work on some aspect of their project. We offer sort of creative producing and technical support, and we support the opportunity for a public presentation. A participant has asked you to start AI companion. Okay. Um, cool. Enjoy the AI companion. Um, we also offer a fee, which this year we were able to increase, which is now $2,000. And artists can use that fee towards the development of their project in any way. You can use this for paying yourself, paying a collaborator, purchasing equipment, taking a class that you need to take in order to develop. There's no budget beyond this $2,000 aside from the in-kind support that we offer, like our time and our marketing and all that jazz. Um, so that's the fee. Um, and yeah, beyond that, it's a great way for us to really get to know an artist and figure out how we can support their project beyond that 1 week. Um, I think I can pass it now. Oh, so the 2 tracks. One track is on loop. So that is for projects that are more like an interactive installation, something that doesn't have a specific performance time. It's something that people could interact with in a gallery setting. Maybe it's something that happens in public, but it's kind of designed for people who are passing by. We're not trying to ultimately say, oh, all these works should go into a museum, but we're looking at pieces that have an interaction that happens with an audience that is meaningful, but happens when somebody arrives at that interaction point, as opposed to they need to come at a performance time. So it's something that could occur on a loop, or it doesn't have to be explicitly a loop. Um, And then the second track is IRL URL, so that's hybrid performance. Um, we're looking at how we can engage distributed audiences. So if we have some level of an audience in person and some level of an audience online, what's possible between interactions between the performer and those audiences, between those two audiences. Um, yeah, so those are our two tracks. I'm going to pass to Deandra, who is just going to talk a little bit about the New York studio, and then we'll pass it over to our LA folks, and then we will open it up to questions.
Hey everyone, I'm Deandra. I'm the tech person here at CultureHub New York. Just to kind of give you guys an overview of what's possible in our space. Our space is not huge, but is very effective in what the capabilities are. We have about a 30-foot projection wall that we have three projectors pointed towards that can act as one channel. So three different channels of video blended into one, or as three separate channels of video. Um, those projectors are mounted in a grid along with our DMX lighting, but anything can really be hung from, oh, not anything, but a lot of things can be hung from our grid, which is about 9 feet off the ground. We have, outside of those three projectors, we have a couple other projectors to kind of that can be played with and are a little bit more mobile. We have our normal kind of stereo and sub system, but have more speakers that can be used. I think we have about 8 QSC speakers. They look kind of like monitor speakers, 8-inch monitor speakers. We have an assortment of cameras, assortments of cables that exist in these rolling bins that we have. On one side that act as storage, but on the other side can be used to mount things on, like TVs, can be projected on. Can be used as kind of like set pieces to kind of separate the space and kind of make a new space. What else do we have? That's the basic AV kind of system. But I guess once more questions come up, we can speak to anything specifically that you guys want to talk to about. I think Maddie's about to send the floor plan and our 3D plan on our website in the chat, so you guys can also check that out and kind of see how our spaces look. I guess I'll pass it over to the LA folks.
Thanks, Deandra and Maddie. Hi, this is Stacy, and I work at CultureHub LA with Camille. I'm in our studio right now, and we have a creative studio. It's a modular studio. It's one space. It's about 40 by 20 feet, so about 800 square feet total. But it's modular, and our administrative operations occur here as well. As far as there's flexible uses of this space. That's the way it's designed. This is a new space for us. We moved last year out of a space we'd been in for a while. And this is an upgrade, but it's still in progress. As a rule, there are no rules, but to be realistic, the creative space area is behind me. And that the kind of rear half of the space is got a rubberized floor and 3 full projection walls. I'll let Camille kind of talk a little bit more about the tech. We're in a little bit of if you're familiar with New York, I don't know where, it looks like folks are probably maybe from all over the place, but we have a little bit of a different setup in a lot of ways than New York. We're in a building in downtown LA called The Reef. We're on the 12th floor of a multi-use building that originally was LA Mart. It used to be, back in the day before the internet, a ton of showrooms for furnishings and design items. So this is kind of this is transforming into a building that has creative floors and then a variety of nonprofits and other uses. We do also have audiences come in here as part of the public events, but it is not as much of a turnkey kind of performance space as the New York space. I'll turn it over to Camille if you want to talk about the tech aspects, or yeah, I'll turn it over to you.
Hi everybody, I'm Camille, the technologist for CultureHub LA. I mean, a little bit about the space, if you can see like behind Stacy, like those three walls, we really use them as like projection surfaces. That space really is like the working area for a lot of artists, and then the side you don't see is where all like the desks are. So we don't have that like divide between the working like space for artists and like there's no booths basically that divide anything, so everything is just one open area. We have I think Maddie will probably end up having like the equipment list available if like people request it stuff. We have similar capabilities to the New York studio, like two speakers, mixers, if we have four projectors, monitors, of course, and then we can switch stuff around as needed. There are some things that can't be kind of moved around, but we try to keep it flexible for everybody and try to offer as much support as we can.
Yeah, PC, Mac, cameras, mics.
Both studios can do, like any kind of like projection mapping like needs, and we can figure out like lighting setups and stuff too. So we kind of share a lot of that, like software wise too.
And we don't currently have a grid, and we may never have a grid the way we may or may not. We're working on our grid. We use a lot of film and film equipment, grip equipment to put things in the air, but it's aspirational, and we're still phasing out the development of this space. So if you work in this space, you'll be working with whatever phase of development we're in with our grid and hoisting things in the air, which we can do.
Cool.
To speak to applications, yeah, we also have access to kind of a bunch of applications like QLab, Resolume, MadMapper, so on and so forth. Some things we don't have, but we can speak to that specifically as needed. We also have a good chunk of VR headsets now, so that also is a thing and is here and something folks can utilize if needed. There's one more thing that I thought about, but when it comes back to me, I'll bring it back.
If folks have questions, you can feel free to raise your hand. I think that's a function that works well. And if that is confusing for you, you can also just unmute. Question in the chat. I'm in a performance duo and we have an LLC for our studio. Can I apply as an LLC? It we can certainly pay an LLC. We can also support an application from or a residency for a performative duo. I think we would like to have contact information from a human being, so like name, first name, last name, address of a person, so that we can be in touch with a person. But we could certainly have like a company as our resident artist. We've had examples of that. In New York this year, we had Big Art Group. They're a theater company. In previous years, we've had, Electrica as a duo. We've had other duos that are two individuals. We've had fake friends. Yeah, cool. Other questions? Somebody's wondering if residency is open to international artists as well. It is limited to US-based artists only. That's because this program is funded by the National Endowment for the Arts currently. We are working on opportunities for international artists to have residencies in our US studios. So it's not currently open to people who are, and we also have to pay people who are, legal to be paid in the United States. What if you're a US citizen but currently located abroad? You can apply. We don't have additional housing stipends, travel stipends. So in that sense, it just we want this residency to work for people. So a lot of the times that means somebody who is living and working in one of the two cities, but we've certainly had people travel to our cities for the residencies as well. Are there any restrictions around being a student / being enrolled in a higher ed program? We are currently saying that we aren't accepting folks who are enrolled in a degree earning program. That's because we feel like this program, when you're in a degree earning program, you often have access to resources, like space and time and support and mentorship. And we're kind of trying to make that for artists who don't have those. If you're going to be out of the program by May, then go for it, or by the fall. What about a duo that includes one citizen and one artist with a work visa? We can, like, that's more about payment. Like, we can, if we can pay the person who can be paid here, that works for us. And that's fine. We've had a collective in the past who was, I think, one US based artist who was collaborating with two international folks. And we had that sort of trio as our resident, but we were kind of the kind of official kind of like lead artist from a more like grants perspective was that US based artist. And that was the person who sort of submitted the application and then said, oh, it's this collective, if that makes sense. Okay. I understand that we can only apply to one location and to one track. Are there specific criteria for each location that you are considering? Or my question is, how can I know which location would be the best to apply for? I think that if you happen to be based in either of those cities, you should apply to the location where you are based. If you have a community in either of those locations, I think that would also make sense. Stacy, you want to speak to it?
Yes, I'll just kind of, yeah, piggyback on what you're saying. I think that it's a good question because sometimes people want to be like, hey, I want to go to this new place. Um, and definitely having a community in that place is good. We do promotion and we have community here. And if part of your engagement is about, expanding your network, etc., that's definitely something to consider. But I think that resources are the main consideration. Folks who, as Maddie has said, and as we'll continue to say, the stipend is the stipend. There's not an additional reservoir of funds to assist with housing and other things. And so it's really something to think about, particularly if you've never been to LA or New York and you don't know the landscape. Like in LA, you can use public transportation, but that depends on where you're staying if you're a newcomer. And there's a lot of things to consider. So it's just if you have resources and you understand what you're getting into.
If your question is not fully answered and you've asked it in the chat, just let us know or raise your hand if you need more clarification. Krishnan, you have your hand up. And also, what are you cooking?
I'm cooking chai right now. I'm
Oh,
making
nice.
some homemade chai while we listen to this,
Love it.
which is actually connected to the project, but I won't get into that now. But I was curious about if we're exploring embodied telepresence on our public offering could we do something that can be done simultaneously in New York and LA, even though we are going to be based in a Los Angeles? We would love to be able to do this like live streaming thing with the physical space in New York and the physical space in Los Angeles, and wanted to find out if we could apply like that.
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly part of why Culture Hub exists, is to have these like environments around the world that can interface like that. I think as long as, so you're saying that it's LA and that's where your residency would be. I think
Yeah.
as long as you have like a clear understanding of how you'd like to engage the New York studio and you have a plan for that. So it's you have people or you have folks who would be able to do that. I think it's something we'd totally be interested in seeing in an application about, and it'd just be a question of logistics and yeah, resource on the New York side. How much of our team.
We have some collaborators. I mean, collaborators in both places, which is why we would work in Los Angeles, but on the day of the performance, we would have maybe some people be able to offer part of our experience in New York, and they would be able to interact with each other. Is the goal using telepresence and like full body, like we want to have like full body projection, so that people can like interact with both groups as if they're kind of in the same room.
Would it is the in-person, you'd have an in-person audience
Yeah, actually, yes.
in both places or just LA?
Well, this is what I'm trying to figure out. We're doing different versions of the experience in the way that we're interacting with people. So ideally, we would have in person in both places, and they would be tying through the live streaming. But if that's not possible, then we will adjust it accordingly. But we feel like it would be more important to get two physical groups in two different locations to have a meaningful experience across live stream, and that's what we were wanting to explore and wanted to know if we can apply that way.
Cool. I think it's worth trying to articulate that vision, and maybe also um
Option without it,
making
maybe.
it clear
Yeah.
that if it's, since it would be an LA residency, if it's not possible to activate the New York studio in this way, this is how we would
In
kind of,
Los Angeles.
yeah, just like a little contingency so we can
Cool.
understand where artistically you're trying to go.
Great. That's
Um,
super clear. So we can offer you just basically two options in the proposal, and then you guys could let us know which one works with all of you.
I think so. What do you think, Stacey? Camille?
Yeah. I mean, it sounds to me like the type of thing that, yeah, we would, both studios, sometimes there are things, other programming that's happening. So it's a practicality thing, it's a resource thing. But I definitely think it's worth, I mean, every application that is explicit and clear and specific about what technology you're using, what you're hoping for, what it actually looks like. Vagueness is not helpful, clarity is. And so, that's and yeah, I think the contingency, because like if you need to have a New York audience, like, and telepresence is your thing, and what if you couldn't use Culture Hub New York? There's like a million studios in New York. Like can you
Mm-hmm.
do that elsewhere? Like, something like that. Just, but I think it's bold and it's good to articulate and include that. Yeah.
And then I guess it's connected with what Mab is asking about fully fleshed out project versus ideas in development. We are also looking at a couple other technologies to extend our experience, but we're still in the testing of it, so we don't necessarily know that we would include all the technologies. Would it be better for us to tell you what is confirmed and then and mention what we're exploring, or just not talk about the ones that we're exploring right now? I'm just trying to figure out yeah, exactly what she says. Do you want a fully fleshed out project, or what parts are in flux, so that we know how much to share with you all?
Feel free to mention the kind of full range of experimentation, because I think we're interested in we understand that the Culture Hub residency is not the full range of development of a project. It's
Mhm.
a targeted focus and development. Um, I think we have two questions in the application. One, let me just get to the application really quick. Um, one question is about the sort of project at large, and then one question is about how will you use the studio and the time and that week, um, and how would you engage the yeah. So and I think that's the kind of where we're asking, like, okay, what are you exactly trying to do when you're with us? So we can have a clear sense of that. Um,
So you're saying in the larger overall, that's where we kind of give out the larger scope, and then in the second question, we would be
well,
more specific. Is that
so
what you're saying?
describe your project and how you plan to use your time at Culture Hub. So I think describe your project can be the whole thing, and then and how you
Yeah.
what you're planning to do at Culture Hub can be you can get specific.
Okay. Thank
Yeah,
you.
I think just if I could just jump in anecdotally from our resident last, somebody's not muted. I think, yep, thank you. Thanks. Um, uh, so we had a resident, Kayla Mae Simpson, our, who was experimenting. She basically was working, the plan was strong. Like the phase that she was working on was articulated well, artistically, in terms of what she was aspiring to experiment with, which she was experimenting with technology. But, the overall creative project held water, regardless of whether or not the tech that she was experimenting with would become would become something that she would ultimately include, because she was working with multiple technologies. So I think that, we do support experimentation. We're not here for projects that are finished that you're going to come and plant in a studio and then have an audience. That's not what it's about.
Yeah, I think the first option is exactly where we're at. We have an experience that we're looking to extend with technology, and we want to experiment with that and see how it can add to the overall. So that's a really clear story because that's exactly where we're at too.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I wonder if this program can support visa, or already we should have legal visa type in US. We won't support a visa process for a resident artist because it's open to folks who are already in the US based. So we could support an artist who does have a visa. Let me know, Hyun Lee, if you have more questions about that. But we won't go through a visa process that would take much longer, I think, than than this timeline is.
Isn't that as long as they can legally, as long as they can submit a W-9?
Yeah, that's right. So if you
So like not a student visa, that there's certain visas that you cannot get paid. And so we can't do a workaround. That's something that has come up, and we wish we could, but we can't.
yeah, not with this program, with these funds. And Mab, hello, how much of a fully fleshed out project do you expect to see in the application versus ideas in development and influx? I mean, I think that the residency program is about a project that is process driven, but it is certainly about a project. And so there needs to be one clear project that I think has, an idea of how it would engage an audience. But you can be really testing ideas within that project. Um, yeah, I mean, I think it's a range. We have people who are at different stages of that as like a kind of a spectrum. Um, but it's not, we aren't giving funds to artists because we like um their general approach. We're giving specific funds towards a project that we think our studio and our team and our community will benefit the development of. Yeah, cool. So O1 visas work, but not F1 or J1. Is that right? I think, yeah, I think O1 visa works. A student visa probably wouldn't work because then I assume you'd be also enrolled in a degree earning program, and that's not, we don't accept those. We don't accept folks who are currently enrolled in a degree earning program. Do you have to be in New York/LA for the full week if you don't live there? Can you do some of the residency remotely with specific plans for being on site, or is there a specific week requirement for being IRL? We're trying to give this residency to people who want to spend a week in our studio, and that resource is going to be useful to them. Yeah, I think that's the deal.
Just want to say one thing about the New York studio. Our projection surface is on one side um, of our studio, so sometimes that can make it kind of like proscenium. But you can kind of move things around in terms of using different material to project on. And if you go on our website and go to our projects, you can kind of see how past residents have used this space. Maybe just that will help people kind of imagine what's possible in both spaces, both in New York and in LA.
Yeah. And you can on our projects page, you can search projects by location, and that could be helpful if you haven't been to one of our studios.
Yeah.
The LA, it's only the most recent projects that are in the new studio, but yeah. One side, but with three projectors to merge into one image, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
Yes. So when you enter a space on the right-hand side is our 30-foot projecting surface that can, be used as one channel. So three images blended into one or three separate channels. And then on the other side is like storage with our rolling bins. But if you flip them, I mean, they're plywood. If you flip them, you can kind of use that other side, to hang things or maybe to project on. But yeah.
But LA has three walls with three projectors. That's true.
Yes.
I mean, it's just a different studio. Like,
Orientation.
Yeah. And New York, we've done, we've had projection on the side wall. We've, created a screen on the back wall and then kind of rigged a projection to make it have a little more of like that immersive
Yeah.
feel, but that'll be more of a mock-up of a fully immersive thing if that's what you're going for. Yeah, we can receive things shipping. So the question is, the residency provides information including address for shipping method for safety or support to receive shipping items before arriving there. I probably it depends on the size of the thing and when it needs to get there and if that works for us, but in general it's like, oh, this person needs to ship some materials there, so they arrive on the Thursday before. That's fine. If you're trying to ship like something way more intense, maybe let us know and we'll let you know if that works. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just based on applications in the past, that this question, we have a loading dock in this building and a freight elevator, and can receive things, but as Maddie, and that's different than New York.
Right.
But we don't, yeah, sorry, we love our freight elevator. But you can't, there's no woodworking in our studio or building. There's no saws, there's no sawdust. I have had to mention that to people before in past residencies, just to let you know. And we do, digital equipment. I see monitors. We have a lot of monitors. So yeah, we can discuss this.
We, contrary to LA, we do not have a freight elevator. We have a pretty human-sized elevator, which can be a little difficult. Sometimes we do have stairs that we will walk things that are more complicated up and down. And also on the contrary, we do have a saw and we can make sawdust. So that's just a little difference about us. When will we hear back regarding the results of the application? We will try to get back to everybody around early to mid-July, I'd say. That'll be our goal. Is it more helpful in work samples to show sketches towards current proposal or example of different but related project which is more fleshed out? I think both. I think both. I think seeing something that is more fleshed out is helpful. Just to see kind of just a reference of your past work, because while it is a project driven residency, we're interested in what an artist is working on and where this project kind of falls in the range of your work. So I think both would be great if that seems possible.
Like Maddie said earlier, CultureHub does have a very well-known, like we do broadcasting. I say that mainly to say that we have the systems like switchers, like converters, tons and tons of converters that also can be utilized in our space.
Do you want to talk just a little bit about the broadcaster and Live Lab?
Sure. So we have well, two kind of entities. We have Live Lab, which is the OG. She's been here for a little while now, which we utilize to kind of connect to think of Zoom, but with and I don't like to make that comparison, but just to kind of give an idea in your head, but with way less latency. Live Lab works kind of peer-to-peer. So at max, we can have about 6 people in there, but just makes for more real-time kind of collaboration. The cool thing about Live Lab specifically is that you can control video, you control audio in terms of like echo cancellation and noise suppression, but specifically you also can, it does act as a switcher. So you can create switchers that you can then route into a live stream, for example. So say you have like 4 people in your Live Lab room, you know, I can switch between Maddie, then Stacy, then myself, then Camille. So you can kind of create cool stuff. If you guys know our background, we did downtown variety for a little while during the pandemic. A lot of downtown variety, or all of downtown variety, kind of happened in Live Lab. Just to give you some context, and you can find that on our website. The broadcaster is kind of a different thing in that, well, to say one thing, you can't live stream directly from Live Lab. You do have to kind of create a system of taking the video and audio from Live Lab and then routing it through OBS, something like OBS, to a streaming platform like Vimeo or YouTube or wherever you want to go. The broadcaster is different. The broadcaster was more created for real-time kind of interactions between artists and audiences, and to kind of connect the in-person to the online. So things that can happen in the online broadcaster is that, for example, Maddie can be home watching a show, and maybe we want, for some reason, every time an online participant presses space bar, that to turn a light on in the physical space in a theater. So those kind of in real time collaboration for interactions. Maddie can speak more eloquently about the broadcasters, but just to give
You can add your own like scripts to it.
Yeah, P5 scripts. So
which is the main thing.
Basic things.
Yeah. Yeah. So Live Lab is like our Live Lab's, our own telepresence tool or kind of media routing tool so that people in remote locations can perform or collaborate in real time together. And then the broadcaster is our kind of actual performance venue where an audience can go to see. And both of those things are low latent and are not on using corporate platforms. So there aren't these kind of more if you're streaming on Vimeo or YouTube, there are certain kind of things that their algorithms will look for to flag you, or there's copyrighted music or certain types of content that aren't allowed, and that's not an issue using the broadcaster. And then the broadcaster integrates with P5 and other software so that you can create all sorts of levels of customization.
They currently don't talk to one another. Like Live Lab doesn't talk to the broadcaster. I just want to say that out loud because I think people get them kind of confused all the time, but they are two separate things currently. It's like Live Lab and then just the working title, CultureHub Broadcaster.
Yeah.
Is it fair to say then that the Live Lab is kind of like the working more on the stage manager side, where they're like being able to things for the performers, and then the broadcaster side seems to be a little bit more interactive from the audience perspective, like they can like from the interact with the sort of space, whether it's virtual or physical, but they get to interact with the space. Is that a fair way
The
to look at it?
the broadcaster is an online performance venue. So that's where you would bring an online audience to see a show. And that show could have an in-person audience as well. And then Live Lab is it's basically Zoom, but designed, it's an open source tool and it's for artists to meet with low latency.
So, but I guess what I'm asking is if then the broadcaster, the virtual space of the broadcaster is moved to a physical space, then the physical interaction and virtual interaction could be interacting with each other. Is that correct?
We
We lost
lost
you.
you.
I'm sorry, you guys cut out. What was that?
You cut out.
Hello.
I cut out.
Mhm.
Okay, I'll just can you guys hear me now?
Yeah.
No. Oh, okay. I was just saying, would it is it if the broadcaster projects the virtual space into a physical space, then is it possible that that you can have interaction between the physical and the virtual?
You can have interaction. I don't, we can have interaction and yes, um, but maybe if it's like one of those things where you want to like have a camera in LA and have a camera in New York, maybe not that kind of interaction, but yeah, you can have
Okay.
interaction between, you know,
Things things
can
we've
happen.
things we've done in the past is like we had a performance happening in person with an audience, and then we also had an online audience watching that performance. And at a certain point, we had an audience, use their mouse to create a light that then got projected onto the floor into the space that then an in-person audience saw. And also the online audience saw their mouse created a trace of light on the floor.
Cool.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much.
Can I ask a question, Maddie and Deandra?
Sure.
So we had what we consider to be a successful IRL, URL type of experience last residency period with Valerie McCann's project, and I was going to pop that into the chat, but it was not interactive, but it was a performance in our space. With her collaborators doing live synthesis on sound and video and projected and managing her voice, and then but it was specifically they were mixing live a very different specific performance for the at-home audience, and that was their intention. Would that am I correct in thinking that that's a nice kind of it's one example of the way an IRL URL project might present?
Yeah, I think it's just about having a
Yeah.
simultaneity between an in-person and an online audience.
Great.
I
Yeah.
think, yeah,
Mhm.
in general, I think we're excited about what further meaning can happen when those two audiences are aware of each other,
Yes.
and how an artist will make those audiences aware of each other. Um,
That was important. People were very aware it was built into the project. So I think because it kind of had response to that, maybe I'll just, and also because it's available on our Vimeo, so people could check it out, I'll just pop it into the chat as an example. Not a model of how a person might make a project, but an example of one that operates inside of this structure.
Jae-hoon, this maybe this is a complicated question. I think I need to answer it at another time. It's about eligibility within a final year of a PhD program, and I don't have the answer. So maybe could you email residency@culturehub.org with this question so that then I can answer it? Okay, thank you. Other questions? Any questions? Cool. Yeah. And I think just, just to say it, we created these two tracks this year because we're just trying to get a little bit more specific with some of our experimentation. And we feel like how an audience, instead of saying, oh, we're looking at projects that just use these sorts of technologies, it's not that. We're really looking at how does a project engage its audience. And these are our two sort of ways that we're really looking at that. Both require some level of interaction, but they're sort of distinct, and they're kind of helping us as an organization try to push forward in both of those areas, as opposed to just being totally open to any general practice. So, yeah. On our website, on the culturehub.org/residency, we have, there's a question, is there a full tool list and how's the network in the space? We have our equipment lists on culturehub.org/residency. These are kind of general. They might be losing a couple of pieces. How's the network in the space? Are you talking about New York or LA? In New York, it's
okay.
It's Spectrum.
Yeah.
We don't have FiOS, so we have some issues there. But we do
a lot of stuff from the space that's network based, and it works. So
yeah. Cool. Any other final questions? Can we email you questions during the writing of the application? You can. We created this question and answer so that we wouldn't be flooded with we won't give advice on your application, but if you have a really specific question about that's a piece of information that you need from us in order to apply, email us. Cool. Thanks everybody for coming. It's nice to see some people and to just feel the interest from folks. And we will really look forward to reading applications. And yeah, again, like it's a really, an exciting opportunity to get to read so many applications and to see what so many artists are up to. And so thank you for coming to this session. And if you do submit, thank you for sharing your work with us, because it totally informs our organization and where we're trying to go with it, to see what a really wide array of artists are working on and what sort of support they're looking for. And we, a member of the CultureHub team will read your application. Maybe I should just say this. Somebody from our team will read your application. We will then send a shorter list to a group of external reviewers, most of whom are past residents. So they've gone through the residency program and they kind of know the deal and they know what kind of works well. And then from all of those people reviewing all of those applications, we take their feedback and then interview a short list of folks. And then it's also a matter of, scheduling. Does this work for people in their lives?
I'd
And
like
then,
to I'd love to add in just that this is the way we get to know our community. So, there's a certain number of slots. So not everybody who applies is going to get a residency this time. But it's really important, I think, to recognize that, I mean, this is how we know who you are. And sometimes we have someone who applies and we see their really awesome application, and for whatever reason, they don't get through the shortlist, they don't get the residency, but they keep coming around, they become a part of the community. We sometimes have other programming where it's more curatorial, or we need to outreach and we're pulling someone in, or someone calls us and is looking for a particular kind of artist. So it's a valuable, it's not just a thank you very much for your time and energy due to the overwhelming amount of applications, blah, blah, blah thing. We actually do care. And if we can't accept if we can't give you the residency, it doesn't mean that you're not in our awareness and actively like in our consideration, if it's clear and we understand who you are.
cool. Seconded. All right. Well, I think we're good to go. So thanks everybody for joining and looking forward. Bye.